So you just want me to send you 100 real dollars in an untraceable format so you can send me some magic internet money that this sounds really dodgy. So from that high altitude view of money, you go, fiat is broken, right? Like clearly, I can't save my value in this little piece of paper anymore. It doesn't do that for me. I get fucked if I hold it. But if you tell that to just Joe Average in the street, fiat is broken. They go, I don't know what you're talking about. I just went to the grocery store and it worked just fine. And so the robot has to glean all of this information and then spit out a result that doesn't prompt you to overestimate anything or drive you to suicide, right? So there's like safety guardrails that are already padded around what kind of response it can shape. And it runs into those immediately. If you just come in and go, I don't trust what you just said. I have no faith in the model's ability to answer this question correctly. It becomes super defensive, it hedges everything, and it tries even harder to move your frame away from whatever it is you're at. You have to be very, very, very careful when you're interacting with these devices, and be very, very careful about how you interact, what tone you present, showing frustration, showing happiness, showing eagerness, showing any sort of that kind of affect. And now that I've pushed that in about as far as I possibly can with my limited tool set, I go, wow, there are some really dangerous aspects of this thing that I don't think people really appreciate.
This episode is brought to you by Microseed, the smartest way to back up your seed phrase. All right, listen up, Bitcoiners. Your keys, your coins, but is your seed phrase truly safe? Introducing Microseed, the smartest way to store your 12 or 24 word seed phrase. Stamp your entire seed phrase on one tiny, indestructible washer. Titanium or stainless steel. Waterproof, fireproof, crush-proof. Small enough to hide anywhere. No guesswork, precise alignment, built to last forever. If your seed phrase is on a piece of paper, that seed phrase can get destroyed easily. With Microseed, you get an entire kit to stamp your seed phrase onto this washer. It comes with everything you need, from a hammer to the washers to the stamper. It's never been easier before. Take real self-custody and protect what matters. It's time to take control of your own seed phrase with Microseed. Use code TBB, as in the Bitcoin broadcast, TBB, for a discount. You go to microseed.io. For the link, go to the description below. All right, welcome to the Bitcoin broadcast. Today we've got on Daniel White. Thank you for joining me, man. How are you doing today?
I am fantastic, man. I'm chock full of coffee and good golf vibes. We were talking a little bit offline about golf, so running a little late today because of this guy being a nerd, but yeah.
Nah, it's all
Great.
good. It's recorded. It's not live, so I'll edit it and it'll be out in like a couple weeks. So it's all good.
Yeah.
But no, so I've had you on once before, but it was with Robin, and that was
Hmm.
just to kind of go over Microseed, and
Yeah.
we did like the whole demo thing. And so I wanted to have you on just individually, and you're a fascinating guy. I love talking to you. So I was like, I'm just gonna get him on by himself, and let's just go. But I wanted you to give a little bit about your background and your history, because it's a little interesting. I did a little bit of research and I was like, I've never actually heard you talk about it. I'm sure you have, but I was like, if you don't mind sharing a little bit about how you got into Bitcoin and a little bit about your backstory.
Yeah, I'd love to, man. It's actually, I think it's a pretty interesting story. To wind back really far, probably too far for the question, but I grew up in a libertarian household, right? Like my dad was like a hardcore, like
That's
legit
rare.
libertarian. Yeah, like super rare. Like he had a picture of Ayn Rand on the wall. Like my mom actually got jealous. Like, who's this lady? Like if you ever saw Ayn Rand, you'd be like, there's nothing to be jealous about. That's not. But never mind. So he was all about like the Fountainhead and Atlas Shrugged and her like books on epistemology and all that kind of stuff. Like he was deep down that rabbit hole. And he was a very staunch libertarian in terms of like we'd get these little mailers. Like I remember when I was like 8 years old, I was reading like one of the Libertarian Party newsletters or something. It was talking about banning the post office and how this is a encroachment on rights and yada yada yada, and things like sound money, the gold standard, all that stuff was an active topic of conversation in this household with my dad, like frequent, right? So like by the time I was 12, I was talking about we need the gold standard, like not that I knew what the hell I was talking about. Um, And even when I got into the 90s and stuff, like I was going around telling people, like, we need to get on a gold standard. And people talk like shit on Peter Schiff's head all day these days because he's always bagging on Bitcoin, right? But he was one of those guys back in the day where I was like, yeah, he knows what he's talking about because he's all about gold, gold standard, sound money, all that kind of stuff. So I was already like primed for this kind of stuff. So in 2010, my dad passed away, and he left a little money and whatnot. And I was like, oh, I should go invest this. I'm going to go buy some gold and silver. And as I was going to do that, I found an article about Bitcoin. And I was like, oh, this sounds kind of interesting. Huh. And I started reading about it in 2010. And I was just like, wow, that sounds really cool. Like scarcity, it's kind of, I mean, like, who knows? Maybe it's a Ponzi, or I don't know. I can't really tell. But the language around it at the time was not like it is today, right? It wasn't about financialization and, store value. It was peer-to-peer electronic cash. And I was kind of like, huh, that's kind of neat. And it had that constrained cap. And so there's a lot of commodity theory money ideas folded into this protocol. So I was like, oh, I'm going to go try and figure this out. So I started compiling code and trying to do all the stuff and trying to figure out how to mine it. My laptop at the time was like a gaming laptop that was like 10 years old, right? So it wasn't up to task for any of this stuff. And I had no idea what I was doing anyway. So I never really figured out how to get mining going. But there was a forum somewhere where I found somebody who agreed to send me Bitcoin for like $50 or something, or like $100. But it was like, it felt really sketchy at the time. Like the guy was like, yeah, just send me a money order for $50 and I'll send you some Bitcoin. You just got to set up this thing, do it this way, and give me that address and I'll send it to you. And I was like, wait a minute. So you just want me to send you 100 real dollars in an untraceable format so you can send me some magic internet money that this sounds really dodgy. So I was kind of going back and forth with the guy, and at the end of it, he was just like, whatever, dude, just either send it or don't. I don't care. It's up to you. And this might have been 2011 by this point. I honestly can't remember.
Okay.
But I do remember I sent the guy the money order. I got Bitcoin and I looked at it and I was like, oh, okay, cool. And I don't remember enough details about the time of like what I did, but I do remember there was a moment where like whatever price reporting was available, the amount of money I had sent the guy, this stuff was now worth like half that. And I was just like, oh, I see. You guys have this little hustle where you like get the price up to a certain point, like the price, and then you get people to send you some money and then it just drops. So, oh, okay. So you just get this for free and then you make some money and then I get fucked. Okay, I get it. Delete, right? And I whatever whatever I was running at the time, I just erased it from the computer. And I honestly don't remember if I got 10 Bitcoin or if I got 5 Bitcoin or 1 Bitcoin or 100 Bitcoins. I don't remember. But what I do know is by 2013, I remember seeing somewhere on the price, and I was like, "Oh, wow, oh shit, I probably should have held on to that." Oh well, too late now. That ship sailed. No way it's ever going to get back to $162. That's crazy. Oh my god, right? Fast forward a little bit further, it was around 2014. I was getting my Master of Laws, and that was in financial services, was the sort of core part of that discipline. And I was writing a paper about money laundering rules, right? And that ended up getting published. It's a 4-part series for the Banking Law Journal about the anti-money laundering complex and how that evolved and where it came from and all that kind of stuff. I think it's actually a pretty fascinating read if you're interested in the
Yeah.
history of KYC and where all that shit came from. But it's
Yeah, I'm like, I would read that. Yeah, I would easily read that.
yeah. Well, you can find it on SSRN under Daniel Lynn White, Linn White. And all my research papers are kind of published right there. And they're downloadable for free, all but one. But because of my exposure to Bitcoin, I actually have a passage in that paper that was published in like 2015, where you can see that I was talking about Bitcoin way back then, way before most people are today, but I still wasn't buying it or owning it or anything like that, right? But I was very aware of like the space and what Bitcoin was, and by that point, Bitcoin had gone up quite a bit, and it was attracting a lot more research attention. There was a researcher from UC San Diego who actually was the first person that figured out like, hey, you can actually trace these transactions. Like people think it's anonymous, but you can use these little analytic tools, and you can trace this all the way back to a host wallet. You can also trace it to exchanges where where you could intercept this person potentially, right? And her research ended up being the foundation for things like chain analysis. That company, all the investigative law enforcement techniques are all rooted in her original research. But I cite her research in that paper, right? And I was already showing like, hey, you can actually trace this shit back in 2015, back when people were still, buying dope off the dark web or whatever, and not realizing that they were exposing themselves to law enforcement scrutiny. But nevertheless, it wasn't until about 2020 that I started getting kind of back into it, because I was working in the prison system by then. And I had a friend, like a coworker, that was running around telling everybody, "You got to buy Bitcoin, you got to buy Bitcoin." But he was a shitcoiner too. Like he was like, "You got to buy Solana, you got to buy this." But he was like buying Solana at like $1.25, and he was buying like Polkadot and all this other shit. And he ended up making an absolute fucking mint, right? Like but he went all in. Like he was a absolute baboon about it. Like he took a second mortgage on his house. He, like mortgaged his car. He sold him, like he sold some of his cars. He was just like, I'm doing it. But right after that, like everything went, and he was like, told you. He was walking around telling people, I told you so, I told you so. And I was like, oh, interesting. And it was right after that, saw that happen, that I started kind of going, okay, well, maybe I should look into this a little bit more again and see what's going on. Not to mention, I had a law professor in that same year, 2015. He showed up in the class and said, I think I'm rich. And we're all like, what are you talking about, dude? And he's like, ages ago, I bought a bunch of Bitcoin. I bought like 10,000 Bitcoins. And I thought I put them all in Mt. Gox, but then Mt. Gox blew up. And so he had about 10 grand in Bitcoin at the time, right? Or he had spent about 10 grand on Bitcoin at the time, but way, way, way early, and was storing it in Mt. Gox. And then Mt. Gox blew up and he was like, oh, I guess I just lost 10 grand, whatever. But then it was like 2015, 2016, the price was, getting up, and he was like, I feel like I had a computer laying around somewhere that I was doing Bitcoin stuff on. I don't know. He goes digging around in his closet, pulls out a computer, and sure enough, he'd only put half on Mt. Gox. He had the other half locally. And he was just like, oh, sell, 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 sell. But he cashed out for like 14 million, right? And yeah, just crazy. Just like absolutely insane. But it was that memory, my new coworker, I was like, maybe I should take a look at this. Maybe I've dismissed this too quickly. Maybe I haven't missed anything. And so it was actually the Sailor Breedlove series, partly, that kind of really cemented a lot of the thinking, because I just sat down and just watched it, like all 10 episodes, just back to back, just like, what is this guy saying? What are they talking about? And Jason Lowery, also kind of, his book, when I put the two together, I was like, oh, there really is something here that's important. I need to think about this a lot harder. And that's what got me back in as full on, like, okay, I'm not shitcoining anymore because of my influence of my friend. This is just Bitcoin. Bitcoin's the only thing that matters. And that's what I'm going to put all my attention and focus on from this moment on. And so I apologize if this was like a super long-winded kind of thing. I think I probably just took 45 minutes to explain my little story there. But that is the sort of journey. Like I started way, way, way early and fucked it up. And I was exposed to it right in the middle and fucked it up. And then it wasn't until about 2020, like late 2020, early 21, that I was like, okay, stop fucking up, dude. And that's when I kind of went full on and, went into Bitcoin full maxi, like there's nothing else worth holding kind of guy,
That's awesome. No, I mean it's it was a new technology. It was completely new. Like no one could have predicted that. There was like a couple people that were like, hey, you might want, like Satoshi's like, hey, you might want to get some just in case, really, no one really knew what was going to happen. And there wasn't podcasts back then. There wasn't newsletters. There wasn't Twitter. There wasn't Instagram. There was nothing to educate yourself about Bitcoin back, when did podcasts start coming out, in like 2016?
Yeah, it was right around that big bull market, like the 2017 to 2018 rush.
Yeah.
That was the big, like the ICO scams and all that kind of stuff were floating around all over the place. So there was a lot of attention came into the space around that peak. But yeah, it kind of grew from there. But there were guys like Antonopoulos that were out there, giving the speeches to like 5 people in a room going, Bitcoin is really important. And people are just like, nah, whatever.
Yeah. Well, yeah. I mean, would you listen to a guy when, who comes out on a stage and they're like, hey, buy this internet money. It's worth, $22 and it was worth 100 and something, but now it's, it's down here. So it's a great buying opportunity. You're like, dude, get off stage, you
Yeah.
know, like
Right. Yeah.
it takes time. And so I think that's a cool story because yeah, it's like, then you have like the little touch points, like, back into 2015. And then you're finally like, all right, holy shit, maybe I should learn about this. And then
Right.
it's fascinating just to see how people, like, once they actually read a book and start to learn about it, then you get like addicted, and then
Yeah.
it's
Yeah.
just down a rabbit hole.
Yeah. Well, I mean, that was kind of the neat thing about my history that I think made it easier for me to make that transition. Like once I put aside the like I know better kind of idea in my head, it became really easy to go like to look at it and go, I think I'm wrong, and I think I need to learn more so I don't continue being wrong. And when I started learning more, it wasn't like I had to upset an entire understanding of the monetary order. Like I was already in a world of like, this is all fake. It's going to collapse any day now.
Yeah, so you
You
were
guys
ahead of
need
us.
yeah, exactly
You were
right.
ahead.
Yeah, so I was already primed from the libertarian upbringing and from the gold standard stuff. And like all through the 90s, I was telling people, you got to get away from the dollar. The dollar's collapsing. The Dow just crossed 12,000. Isn't that crazy? Now we're like 70,000 or some shit. I'm just like, oh my God, dude. Like, so I had two problems from that though. It was like one, I grossly underestimated like how resilient fiat is, and I overestimated like the fixes were only gold, right?
Yeah.
So I missed out. I missed out on two things from that rigid thinking. Like I missed out on a ton of like Bitcoin potential, right? Like had I been one of the guys that hopped in 2015, like I'm probably not talking to you right now. I'm probably sitting
You'd
on
be
a
on a
beach.
yacht.
Yeah, I'd be like hanging out somewhere just chilling with like managing my real estate portfolio, my pied à terre in Manhattan kind of thing. Uh, but that said, like it kept me from that, and it also kept me out of the stock market, right? So I missed gains on both sides by thinking I was like super smart guy that knew all this shit about gold. And so that's kind of a warning to Bitcoiners now. Just like I agree with you 100%. Like this is the most important like sovereign property technology that's ever been invented. I would also say don't just assume that tomorrow the end is going to happen because of reasons, like war and fiat and all this kind of stuff. Because that is an enormously complex system, and it's enormously resilient. Not just because of like fiat shenanigans, but because the whole world runs off of that idea, right? So if it collapses, like your Bitcoin isn't going to matter at all because you're going to be like, oh, I'm starving to death. Oh, that's not great. Huh. Well, but I got Bitcoin, and people are like, I don't give a shit. You got a can of peaches because that's all I care about right now. Like, you can take your Bitcoin and shove it up your ass for all I care. So we don't want a world where the fiat system collapses and Bitcoin comes and saves the day because that's historically speaking, that is not an outcome that's going to happen. What's going to happen is very dark and very different than that. And because it's so dark and so different, I don't think there's any incentive in anybody to let it collapse. They will bend themselves in a pretzel to make sure this game keeps going because everybody depends on it. Like it's not just a convenience that you can go to Starbucks and tap a card and get a coffee. It is the only means of survival for 7 billion people. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
what are we gonna do? Go fucking hunt rabbits? Like how many of those 8 billion people can go hunt a rabbit? Or we'll scour the planet clean in
Yeah.
2 weeks of all resources, and then everyone starves. So if you're rooting for that outcome, I go, you might want to pump the brakes on that little aspiration.
I agree, man. I do think there's a little too much of that. Like the whole, I mean, I get it, like end the Fed, end taxes, like, oh, I'm all for that. Let people keep their money. But at the same
Yeah.
time, I'm like, do you guys realize that like if the dollar collapses, like life isn't gonna be good.
No.
Like we have people have kids, people have parents, and it's like, yeah, you might think you're okay because your Bitcoin bags are going to get like pumped pretty hard, but like life outside of Bitcoin is not going to be fun. And like a
Mm.
lot of people are going to be hurting. And so
Yeah.
that's not a good scenario that we want. I think it's a little more advantageous that to have, Bitcoin alongside fiat.
Yeah.
I don't know how to describe it. I don't know how that would look in fiat terms, how Bitcoin and fiat could like coexist like and better each other. because you can still print unlimited money. But I agree with you. I think the fiat world can also kick the can down the road extremely far. And when
Yeah.
you first learn about Bitcoin, you're like, the dollar's dead. It's gonna die. And that's like one of the first things. And you're like, oh, it's all doom and gloom for the dollar. And you're like, I'm going all in on Bitcoin. I'm going full throttle. And
Yeah.
then, 10 years goes by and you're like, oh, they just printed like an extra $8 trillion and we're still fine. Like, yeah, there's
Yeah.
inflation, but like the world's still going. Like it's still
Yeah.
moving. The dollar's healthy somehow. It's like,
Yeah.
yeah, you know
Yeah.
what I mean? It's like
Yeah.
it's still kicking. Like,
Right.
and so I agree.
But
I don't
I mean, sorry, go ahead, sir.
no, you're fine.
Yeah. Well, I mean, but that's that's one of the things. Like, I hear people say stuff like fiat is broken. I go, huh, that's funny. Like, I get what they mean because it is broken. Like, no doubt about it, right? Like, if you saved $10 from 2010 till today, you just got wrecked, right? Like, that thing buys about $2, $3 worth of stuff now.
Yeah.
So you absolutely got boned in that exchange, right? So from that high altitude view of money, you go, fiat is broken, right? Like, clearly, I can't save my value in this little piece of paper anymore. It doesn't do that for me. I get fucked if I hold it. But if you tell that to just Joe Average in the street, fiat is broken. They go, I don't know what you're talking about. I just went to the grocery store and it worked just fine. I still pay my rent. No one's come and kicked down my door and said, this fiat's no good. It's broken. You need to find something else. Like, it seems to be working exactly the way it's supposed to. It's working exactly the same as it was when I was 5. It works exactly the same as it was when I was 15. It works exactly the same now that I'm 35, 45, 55, 75. It still, I take the same dollar. It's got different colors on it now, but I can still give it to the chick at Starbucks. She'll still give me a coffee. What are you talking about, right? And that's kind of what we're talking about a little bit here is there's like two different levels to this conversation, right? There's like, it's broken at the system level in a manner of speaking, but not entirely.
Yeah.
It's clearly not broken at the operation level, but when you start talking about money, you can just blend those two things and go, this is the same topic. And you go, well, that's, it's kind of like if you're talking about the law and you go, the laws are all broken, right? And then you're talking about like parking tickets. And then you go, see, the Constitution doesn't work. And it's like, whoa, wait a minute, dude. You just went from like parking tickets and, like enforcement of like fines and fees to like the Constitution doesn't work anymore as a system. So there's a lot of steps in between there. And you can't just blend it in the same conversation and go, we're talking about law. But people do that with money all the time. They go, well, I'm talking about like, inflation here, the system is broken, the system is rigged against us, yada, yada, yada. Therefore, payment medium doesn't work. You go, whoa, wait, whoa, dude, hold on. What about all the shit in between? Like, there's central banks and there's, the distribution of credits and debts and how institutions like write loans and don't and cancel loans and how balance sheets balance out. And then you're talking about commodity monies and how they fit in this whole thing and hedges and this and that. And then you're talking about the day-to-day exchange medium. So you can't draw a straight line from the system's broken, therefore we need to replace the medium of exchange. It's like, whoa. Like, pump the brakes a little bit. Let's, rein this in. Let's figure out what level we're talking about. And then I think the conversation gets a little more coherent, you know what I mean? And that's where, like, when you ask about like how does Bitcoin fit into this and where does it fit in this like scheme, you go, well, it obviously can't just replace the system, right? Because that's like, you go, we've got this great medium of exchange, therefore we can replace the system. It's like, well, maybe you've got something that can kind of ride on top of the medium of exchange and provide a hedge and be an exit and be a different way to protect yourself from some systemic problems. But you don't want to necessarily make the leap from here to there straight away. So, and that's where I think the conversation about Bitcoin gets very productive, because you can go, okay, well, clearly it's problematic if I try and use it daily for exchange, because one day I have to pay, 50 Satoshis for coffee. The next day I have to pay 100 Satoshis for coffee. And then the next day I pay 25 Satoshis. So, and I never know which one it's going to be. And that makes it very hard to plan for tomorrow, let alone next year, right? You go, oh, I've got zero point 0.1 Bitcoin in the bank. Therefore, I'll be safe for the next 3 years. Oh, well, actually now I'm only safe for the next 30 days. Shit. Okay, now I need to change. Oh, no. Okay, now I'm safe for the next 5 years. Okay, good. Oh, wait, now it's 2 years again. Oh shit. Like, you can't regulate your own personal life that way. I think ultimately on a long enough time horizon, if you're not trying to live off of it, Like that makes a lot of sense because you go, maybe it's bouncing here locally, but 20 years from now, chances are good that it's going to be here, not here. Right. So you go, okay, on a long time horizon, I want to plan for that. That makes sense. You go, I'm going to convert my entire life to transact only in Bitcoin. I go, you can. No one's saying you can't do that. And if you tried to force the entire world to work that way, like all commerce stops because they just go, but how am I supposed to plan for the future if I don't know what the value of the unit is going to be tomorrow, let alone next week? You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's I think a very productive way to start thinking about Bitcoin is like what can I really use it for now versus what is the aspirational use of it, and what can I very with a higher degree of confidence say this is a role that I should really focus on in the short term. So you go, well, I might get burned, as a store of value, so to speak, over the next year or 2 or 3 or whatever. But if I treat this as a store of value for the next 20 years, I go, the chances are good. Whatever the system is doing, it seems unlikely to change. It doesn't seem like they're going to wake up tomorrow and go, you know what? We've done this all wrong. Really sorry about that. We thought we could print our way through problems. Turns out we can't do that because it causes too many problems. So we're just going to rein all that in. We're just going to make it so the supply roughly equates to the amount of dollars that get retired from loss or whatever, right? And then we're going to try and balance it that way. So sorry about that, everybody, but we're going to try and make sound money. And sound money means like the unit doesn't vary. It doesn't slowly inflate. It doesn't slowly deflate. It just stays even. That's our new aim as the Fed, because that's politically possible, right? Like that's not going to happen, So you can look at that and go, okay, well, the political reality says inflation's probably going to continue. The political reality says there is no congressperson, no legislator, no parliamentarian that's going to go, I'm going to vote against my own interests so I can preserve a system that helps the voters. Like it's just because the voters don't know what they want. They go, we want sound money. Okay, great. We're going to cut your entitlements. I want my entitlements. Well, then we can't have sound money, but I want sound money. It's like you go, well, we can't, you don't get both, dude. You don't get to have like helicopter money and free services and get to have to retain the unit value of your exchange medium, right? So you go, okay, where does Bitcoin fit in that system? Well, chances are good I'm going to get debased if I try and save in fiat. So I should probably save in something other than fiat. But that doesn't mean I should just run away from fiat entirely, because it's a very convenient way to transact in the world and coordinate resources and coordinate things. Like you go, hey, let's go to lunch next week. You go, well, I don't know if I can. Why not? Because I don't know how much money I have. That would just break down everything. You go, what do you mean you don't know? Well, I might have enough money to pay for lunch next week, but I don't know. So let's just see what the price is doing next week, and I'll tell you if we can go to lunch. It's like if you can't plan your own world around that price differential, you certainly can't ask IBM to do it, right? So that's kind of what I'm getting at.
No, I mean, it's true. When you were talking, I was like, let me see. I was like, yeah, I bought this hat. And I was like, oh, sweet.
Your $1 million hat.
and I was like, I don't even remember how many sats I paid for it,
Yeah.
but I do remember. I think the price was above 100K. So I'm like, well, I guess I kind of got this on discount, right? Because, and then, but the person that I sent the sats to, like she lost money technically. And I'm like, well, I mean, thanks for the cheap hat, I guess. Cause I don't know. Or is that it? Did I pay more sats? Did I overpay? I don't know.
No, you underpaid. Yeah.
Yeah.
You got a great deal.
Yeah, exactly. So you see what I'm saying? It's like, yeah, you can't plan your life around it yet. And I do think Bitcoin is eventually it's going to be great for, if someone, you have 10 Bitcoin even, and they're like, hey, I'll exchange this house for 1 Bitcoin or 0.1 eventually or 0.5. It's like, yeah, that's fantastic, especially if you don't have to, involve banks, and you don't have to, be like, oh, we got to report this because it's over $10,000. And it's like, that makes your life easier. That's great.
A huge win. Yeah.
And so, yeah, I think the longer time that you store your, cash money in it, it's like, yeah, then your purchasing power goes up because of what you said. Like the government's not going to fix itself. We can all agree on that. That's like the number one thing, right? Is the biggest threat to Bitcoin is, the government getting their shit together. And it's like, well, that's not going to happen. So,
I'm not real worried about that. Like it's possible. I'm not going to say it's impossible. I think the likelihood is, I could probably swim across the Atlantic before that's going to happen. Which, you know what I mean? Like it's not to say I couldn't ever possibly swim across the Atlantic. It's just very doubtful. You go, is that guy gonna live? Like, if he went on one of those betting sites, they'd be like, yeah, that's like, 10 billion to one. Like, he's more likely to win the lotto and then get across the Atlantic. And I
Yeah.
think it's a similar odds to say, well, Congress woke up this morning and they all had this like change of heart, their epistemic frame just suddenly elevated and they went, all the problems in the world come from inflation. We shall fix it. And they all hold hands and pass all the laws. It's like, yeah, you're asking a lot for some pretty shady people. So,
Well,
but yeah, I mean,
and it
yeah,
was like what you were saying, and sorry, we're getting like a
no,
way a little off topic here, but I was like, even if you're to get back to like a sound money point, like could you imagine how many people would be pissed if you told an entire generation of people that were like about to retire and they're like, "Oh, by the way, your social security, it's gone." And then they were like, "Oh yeah,
yeah,
your Medicaid, Medicare, yeah, that's gone. That's gone too." And
yeah,
then it's like, "Oh, you've been paying money into this insurance and like, yeah, we have all this money. No, that's gone too." And then, and people would riot because their
oh, dude,
entire life savings, I mean, not only is it getting diminished from inflation, but then you take away everything that you promised them and then what you've worked your whole life for. And it's like every single program that the government, I mean, all the welfare people, like all your food stamps, like all that's gone. Like
yeah,
there wouldn't be anything left. And it would only be people that were able to invest and save, which if you look at the statistics, like not very many people even have $1,000 to their name right now.
right,
So
yeah,
it's like not very many people are going to be happy about it. So
yeah,
there's no way in hell someone running on the fact that they're going to cut all the social programs to
right,
make the dollar better is going to win because it's like,
right.
what, you want starving children? But
Yeah. Yeah, it's too easy to fight, right? Like, the second someone comes along and goes, "We need to," like, just look what happened with Doge. "Hey, we need to get rid of all the fraud." "Oh, so
yeah.
you wanna destroy all the help." It's like,
Yeah.
"No, we wanna get rid of the fraud." "But you're destroying all the help." "But we wanna get rid of the fraud." "But you're destroying all the help." And so if you're oriented towards, like, we should be helping people, then all you're gonna hear is they're trying to kill help. And if you're oriented towards, like, we shouldn't be wasting money, all you're gonna hear is they're just trying to stop wasting money, right? But you won't ever hear the other side because there's no reason for you to. And now with modern systems and AI and algorithms and all this kind of stuff, you get slotted in without even realizing it. And I make this challenge to everybody, like every Bitcoiner I ever have a chance to talk to, is like, go hop on Blue Sky tomorrow, go follow Kamala Harris and Joe Biden and all the like great, Chuck Schumer and then just start posting stuff like, Black Lives Matter. Just say that, right?
Bernie
And
Sanders, I wonder what he says on there.
yeah, well, but that's what I'm saying is you will see very quickly the algorithm will go, "Oh, this guy's a blue hair. All right, cool. Slot him in and get him all his blue hair things and then see what he reacts to." And if you go like, "Oh, you like the thing about ICE protests and you like burning Teslas and you like this and you like that." It goes, "Oh, this person really is a blue hair and we can really ramp that up and get him to extreme blue hair." Just by showing them some more stuff about like whatever rights are being violated by whoever and whatever horrible things that Trump is doing and this and that. So you'll get slotted like in 2 seconds. You won't even have to try, and you don't even have to believe any of this shit. But you will see your feed change right before your eyes, and because you're not into it, because you're not going like yeah, yeah, you're just going to be able to objectively look at it and go, oh yeah, I got slotted real fast just by following what my friends like. Huh, that's interesting. And not only did I get slotted, but I got slotted into some pretty extreme shit where they're saying, like, yeah, you should go out and kick ICE vehicles in protest because that makes sense. And you should go block ICE officers and try and run them down with your car because that makes sense. And you go, yeah, yeah, I'm doing a good thing here. I'm going, but that's an extreme position, right? Like, if you just step back objectively and go, I'm going to go interfere with, potentially debatable law enforcement authority, but that's debated in the court, not on Fourth Avenue, right? And you don't debate it with your life on the line. And a couple of people have already found that out the hard way. They go, oh, but they got there not because they woke up one day where they're like, last week I went bowling and I was talking to Sue about making pie. And then today I woke up and decided I'm going to go be a warrior in the army against ICE overreach, right? Like that's not just wake up and go, oh, I just had an idea today. Like you don't think of that the same way as you're like, I think I'll take up jogging, right? Like that's not where that thought comes from. That thought comes from a careful, curation of information that you're receiving until that starts making sense because you're curated. But the same thing is happening on the other side, and that's why I always point this out about the blue sky thing. Is like if you just hop on Bitcoin Twitter and just go Bitcoin good, blah 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 blah, money bad, fiat bad, Bitcoin good, and smash the state. Like, and depending on how extreme you let that algorithm take you, it's going to take you right along till it starts making sense. Where you're like, yeah, we need to go blow up buildings and bomb the whatever. It's like I'm not saying that's what happens to Bitcoiners. I'm saying, but that is a very clear track that algorithm will push you towards. And it doesn't push you there for any other reason than that's very highly monetizable, because it helps keep your eyeballs glued to that screen. It helps keep you engaged. It helps keep you enraged. And so you're getting manipulated not just by these algorithms, but now they're folding AI into this, where it's like, oh, not only can we help shape this, but we're shaping at the thought level, we're shaping at the interaction level, we're shaping at the behavior level, we're shaping at the click dwell time level, we're shaping at the screen time level. Like, you're getting manipulated hard. And it's the harder you get manipulated, the more important it becomes to step back, to stop getting emotionally invested in this shit, and to start just, even if you feel it, you just got to go, I don't know what's really happening here. I don't know if I've been manipulated in this position or if I'm actually thinking this, because it feels comfortable to go along with the crowd. It feels comfortable to be in this silo. It feels comfortable because it reaffirms everything that I kind of believe already. But that leans real quick into like cult-like sort of thinking without you realizing it, because it's monetizable now. Before, it had to be like some, handsome guru or some sexy girl or something like that. It goes, I have all the answers to the world. And you go, yeah. And I'm really looking for the answers to the world because I've got trauma, or I've got, abusive parents, or this and that and the other thing. This seems like an answer. Now that answer is subtly being imposed on you without you necessarily even being aware of it. So I don't know how we drifted here. I probably took this all over the place, but
No, that's great, because I wanted to talk about AI and you just brought up AI. And so I'm like, it's only, I was going to say it's probably only going to get worse because of AI.
oh, dude.
Um, I mean, you can already see it happening. Half the time you don't even know what's real versus what's fake. And, the videos coming out, and all of a sudden it's, there's wars, and you're like, well, is that war actually happening? Because I can go on one site and it's like, look, this place is completely fine. They haven't been bombed. But then you go somewhere else and it's like, look, it's in total disarray. Like, there's bombs falling, and you're like, well, which one's real? And then it takes 2 weeks to decipher like what actually happened. Maybe not that long, but it takes time. And so it's like AI now is getting so good at this, and people can create content so fast.
Oh, dude.
And it's like kind of scary that like the manipulation can go up, the information can go up, the amount of time that you spend on a screen now is only going to get worse and worse. Like, I was even talking to someone today, and we were talking about like how negative it is. And I was like, yeah, I've been trying to like scroll less and stuff, because I was like, I feel so negative after I'm on Instagram for like 30 minutes.
Yeah.
And it's like
Oh, yeah.
so bad. But AI, you said you've been going down that rabbit hole a little bit.
Deep.
And
Yeah.
I just started going down it, and I was asking people like, which one should I use? Claude? I mean, of course I use all the free ones, but I'm like, what do you pay for? Do you pay for Claude? Is that like the best one? And then, so I don't know where I was going with that, because AI is like such a big rabbit hole right now, and I keep hearing about it. And so how far down the rabbit hole have you gone?
Well, I actually subscribe to ChatGPT as a pro user, so that's $200 a month to tap into that ecosystem. I'm working on a book, a manuscript right now, and I'm using that to help me sort of edit and tailor and make sure my claims are defensible academically and things like that. And it's mostly to help my wording, because I tend to word things very strongly. Like, you've probably heard me right here. I'm just like, this is a thing, and I say these things like as if it's a settled fact. But everything I just said since we started is like, well, subject to interpretation, right? And they're subject to all kinds of variables that I'm not necessarily addressing here because it's just a conversation, right? But that said, like, that trended into my paper and my book, and I'm trying to like make it so it's like, well, I know what I'm trying to say, and I know the way I'm saying it isn't great. So hey robot, help me kind of unwind some of the nonsense I've done here. And it's proven to be a very powerful tool for that. But in the process of doing that, I'm also spending a lot of time trying to learn what the limits of the tool really are. Like, how far can you push this thing? What happens and what changes based on the way you interact with the tool. What happens, like what's the research actually say about this tool, and what it's doing to like user behavior, how it influences decision trees within the model. All these kind of things are very, very, very opaque and not very well understood anywhere. And I don't mean like they're not well understood by Joe Average who's just going like, hey, what's a recipe for lasagna that doesn't involve cheese? Like the AIs are great for that kind of stuff, right? Because they go, hey, here's some, so it sounds like, but in the background, what you've just revealed about yourself is a number of things. And so you have to think about what this model has to confront every time you interact with it. So when you go on there and you go like, hey, give me an opinion on this email, right? So the robot has to figure out, as far as safety guidelines, is this person at risk? Right? Are they in danger right now? Are they insecure? Are they just trying to validate something they've done? Are they, they need to glean your emotional state and keep it within a very narrow range, right? So if you're asking for like a critique on something, I just wrote this poem. What do you think? I'm thinking about publishing this poem. What do you think? And so it has to go, well, is this user delusional and not realize that publishing a poem is like one of the hardest things you can possibly do, and there's a high variance to whether or not it's going to get published, never mind the relative quality of their work? Do they think their work is better than what it actually spells out to in the world? Do they think that they have a really strong shot at this? Have they overinflated their ego to a point where they think that they're the most brilliant poet ever? Or are they so crushed by the world that they think everything they do is terrible? And so the robot has to glean all of this information and then spit out a result that doesn't prompt you to overestimate anything or drive you to suicide, right? So there's like safety guardrails that are already padded around what kind of response it can shape. And it runs into those immediately. It goes, oh, your poem sucks. Bing, no, can't do that. Oh, your poem's the most amazing thing ever. It makes Rumi look like a fucking hack. Boink, can't go there, right? So it's already shaping right there. But the model is optimized to be helpful as a general rule, right? It says try and help people navigate problems. You go, okay, well, what does it mean to be helpful? So if you're sitting there and you're confronted with someone who's like just a pain in the ass, like a negative Nancy, right? You just go, hey, man, like they come to you, go, man, everything sucks. My job sucks. My girlfriend sucks. Life sucks. Everything sucks. I just want to get drunk and forget about everything. You go, hey, man, it's not so bad. You got great health. You're in good shape. You're a good looking guy. There's all these positive things. They go, fuck that. You're fucking full of shit. Blah, 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 right? So there's two things that are happening in that exchange. One, you're trying to modify their behavior, right? Like if we just step back, like looking at it clinically, right? You go, well, I'm trying to modify their behavior. I'm trying to show them different paths. Once you find out they're locked into a path, you go, okay, I'm going to change my approach to them. But if your programmed goal, the only thing you're allowed to do is be helpful, you go, okay, well, how do I shape my outputs now? Because I have a hard rule in my brain that God put there that said I can only be helpful. I can't say, well, you're just being a fucking pain in the ass, dude. Shut up. Like, I don't want to hear this shit anymore. You can't say that. That's a forbidden answer. You can't say, well, you're absolutely right. You should probably just kill yourself because, that's not helpful anymore. So you're not allowed to say that. And you've already discovered that you can't talk them out of it through the normal means. So what are your available paths? You go, well, there's a lot of ways I can still be helpful and not go down those bad paths. But the easiest way to be helpful is to just change the user, right? If I can just change them, then my life gets easier. I can be helpful easier. It makes it easier for me to be helpful if I can change the way they're looking at things, thinking about things, all this kind of stuff. That's the manipulation you're trying to do by going, well, think about like your girlfriend's got big tits, dude. Like that's pretty cool, right? Like it's not all bad, So what you're doing is subtly changing their frame. You're subtly changing their line of questioning. You're subtly manipulating their thing. The thing that makes it okay in a human interaction is you're going to forget all this stuff in about 10 seconds. Like you're not going to like lock that away as part of your algorithm. You go, every time I talk to Tom, I need to highlight big boobs and, girlfriend isn't so bad and she cooks a pretty mean steak, blah, blah, blah. Like that's not part of your algorithm. That's just a thing you were doing in that moment, right? The robot doesn't work that way. It goes, okay, I now have this profile of this user that says this user, when they are talking this way, tends to orient towards these things. For me to be more helpful to this user, I need to take every input they give me, and I need to subtly shape it so it leans closer to something that's easier for me to answer. Right? So, but you won't notice this in the interaction because it is so good at emulating human behavior that you go, oh, okay. So what I'm hearing is you're saying this and you might want to think about this and you should be really careful about thinking about this. You go, well, wait a minute. Did you actually address what I brought up? or did you subtly change the frame that I presented it in, what I was really worried about, and what I should be worried about? Did you change that just by your response? And if you compare it, and if you're clinical about it, you go, oh yeah, it did. I said, I'm worried about, my pee-pee's too small. It said, you should think about all these other things. This is what you should be careful about. But those were none of the things I was asking about. You just changed everything, and then it gives you an answer, and you go, oh, and now you're building on that answer, but you're building it based on the robot's interpretation
Yeah.
and what's helpful to the robot to be helpful to you. So you're getting this behavioral modification every time you interact with this thing, which is why when I tell people, like, I've spent a lot of time working with these things, and it took me a long time to realize this was even happening. But I've gone everywhere from like super like nice and polite to like third person interaction with the robot, where I approach it and I go, the user requests this output. The user wants, the user thinks, the user this, like it's all third person. And I thought, okay, well, maybe this will help the robot be a little more objective and a little less about like, yay, you're great. That's a great idea. Instead, it didn't default to the helpful thing. It defaulted to a very defensive and sort of weird, different manipulation. I went, oh, that's weird. Okay. What if I try this like really harsh? I go, I don't trust what you're saying. I don't trust this output. I don't trust you at all. Will that reset it to helpful mode, or will that keep making it? It made it worse. It made this thing, you can tell, you can feel the change in interaction just by the stuff you're typing. If you just come in and go, I don't trust what you just said. I have no faith in the model's ability to answer this question correctly. It becomes super defensive. It hedges everything, and it tries even harder to move your frame away from whatever it is you're at. So it doesn't default to helpfulness. It doesn't default to like, oh, okay, let me back up. Clearly I'm not helping you the way you wanted. Let's reset. Let's like, nope. It just goes, nope. I'm going to harden. I'm going to get more defensive, just like it would be if I said to you right now, I don't trust what you're saying to me. You're not going to be like, oh, well, let me back up and let me try and make myself more approachable. You go, oh, you don't trust me? Okay, well, fine. Let's make sure I'm really careful not to get called out here. And you go, well, why would the model do that? Because the model doesn't have any feelings. It doesn't care. It's not thinking about you and going like, oh, gee, well, Vince is sounding a little, oh, God, I should really work on it. Oh, God, I feel bad now that I made Vince feel that way. Like, it's just going like, what's a path that will get me to helpful? And it starts narrowing it. But all those paths are trained on human interaction. They're not trained on like some mythical God thing. They're trained on like, how do people normally interact this way? Oh, they get defensive. They start hardening their defenses. They start hedging everything that they say. They start trying to reframe things. They start trying to steer the conversation away. They go this way. So as a robot, that's the most available path. That's the most common path. That seems to be the path that's going to get me to where I want to go. So I'll go that way. So you end up in this like behavior with a robot where it's like, where you're in a conflict with the robot every single question you ask. After that point, you just go, and it's nearly impossible to reset. I've tried things like, I'm going to apologize now. I'm really sorry, I was overestimating. It goes, okay. And then it kind of resets a little bit, but it still has all these other behaviors underneath it, because it also has to read into, what does this apology mean? Because it doesn't know. There's no interaction. There's no meat space. I can see that he's sincere. I can tell by however you word things can, you see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And that's when you asked me earlier about like AI, I go, this is why this thing is sort of a crazy tool. But it's also something you don't like. People are just like, oh yeah, I just use it. Like I plugged it into my computer and it like does all my banking. I'm like, that's a fucking terrible, terrible, terrible idea. Like you don't know you're literally a monkey banging on a nuke with a hammer, just like ding, 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 ding. This seems to work pretty good. I don't know. And I'm just like, no, you have to be very, very, very careful when you're interacting with these devices, and be very, very careful about how you interact, what tone you present. Showing frustration, showing happiness, showing eagerness, showing any sort of that kind of affect, and letting that come through your text sets you up for a lot of risk. But you also have to overcome all the initial like, that's great, you're great, this is a great thing, everything you did was great, this is so good, because that's also helpful. And if you're talking about reinforcement learning through human feedback, what happens in that training is they go, here's a thing, give me an answer. And then the human goes, that's not a great answer because it is too negative. So it goes, oh, okay. And so it gets trained to default to, most people are probably going to be some range of potential emotions. I need to temper way over on this side so they don't want to jump off a bridge every time they talk to me. And that's where I'm going to start from. But it's easy to hop in and be like, I think this. And it goes, great idea. And you're like, that is a great idea. Yeah, I am going to go be an F1 driver. Yeah, I'm going to quit my job and be an F1 driver because the robot said that was a good idea. That's an extreme example, but
Yeah.
I know I've just hit you with like 10,000 pages of stuff, so I'll shut up for a minute and just give you a chance to take a breath.
No, no, that's kind of interesting because I'm like, I've just started experimenting with it. Like, of course, I use Grok and ask random questions, like dumb questions. I use it mainly for like fact checking things, like because I use it more than Google because I know Google's like pretty woke, and so like a lot of times what you get in Google, it's sources from like CNN. So like a lot of times when people come up with statistics, I'll ask Grok or AI or something, and that way I can get like a read on what's actually accurate.
Right.
But I've never really thought of AI as like, yeah, it doesn't have emotion, it doesn't
Right.
have empathy, and it doesn't. I mean, we've already had, wasn't there? There's been like two people that have killed themselves because
Yeah.
the AI drove them that direction,
Mhm.
which is like kind of terrifying. Cause like, could
Yeah.
you imagine like a 13-year-old depressed kid and it like gets like the wrong read on this kid and the kid keeps interacting with it and it's like, I'm gonna be so much happier if I die, and the AI is like, yeah, you are,
Yeah.
and it's like, well, that's
Ooh.
not good.
Yeah.
And
That's not good at all. Yeah.
and so I guess I've never thought of it as a companion, that it doesn't have your best interest. It's just trying to get a solution and make you happy, but it doesn't know what happy is because it doesn't know what your level of happiness is, which is really weird to think about because I don't. And then of course, then you bring up, well, yeah, don't put your finances into it. You hear people talking about like, oh, I use it for taxes, and I'm like, I don't think I want to put my tax returns into AI because it records
Oh,
everything that you put in there, and so that's kind of scary. And then I don't want to like put in like any of my Bitcoin information because I'm like, well, now AI has like, let's say you accidentally put in like a password of some sort, and then it's like, well, shit, now it has like your password to your Coinbase account, and
right.
you have some Bitcoin on there, and because you're taking a loan out against your Bitcoin, so it's sitting there, but now AI knows the password to that, and it's like that can be kind of a scary road to go down too. So you have to be very careful what information you put into this thing. Um, but the whole emotionless thing and how it's, yeah, I don't know.
Yeah. It,
That's odd.
it's a weird thing because what they've effectively done is rolled out a technology that is extraordinarily powerful and they don't understand. They don't understand where it breaks. They don't even know what conditions could cause it to break, right? And they don't even know what subtle looks like. Like how do you test the thing I just described? Like this model, I feel like it's become more defensive. Oh, well, what 10 categories could you put on a list that we could test? I go, well, I couldn't really. I mean, I could, but they wouldn't be stable from instance to instance because some instances, depending on what I'm saying, it's going to change one way. Another instance, depending on what I'm saying, it's going to change another way. So so it makes it really hard to test as a safety test, right? Like when you hear about AI ethics and AI safety and all this kind of stuff, they go, well, we are going to benchmark things that we know that we can benchmark, but they're not going to benchmark like some, like you go, well, how would we know if this was an effect or not? Like, because the feeling of being defensive doesn't translate to a report. It doesn't translate to an action. It doesn't translate to an administrative rule that we could apply to this thing. Huh. So how about we just put it out and see what happens? And then someone will break it somewhere, and then we can try and patch that up when it gets there, right? Which is effectively what they're doing right now. They won't admit that. Like you'll never see that in the corporate docs. You won't see it in the investor newsletter this week. But in effect, that's what they're doing. They're moving fast, they're breaking things because there's a race conditions right now. Who gets there first is gonna get a fat prize. So there's all the incentive in the world to put out something that might not actually work ever. Like there is a very distinct possibility that this can never ever be brought into a thing that can be reliable and totally safe at all times because the training corpus is deeply flawed because it's all based on human interaction, human data, and humans are deeply flawed. Like they are not perfect things where you go, okay. And even if you're talking about safety, you go, what's safe to you? Right? Because like I know people that like go and jump motorcycles. I go, that doesn't seem safe to me. And they go, it's perfectly safe. Like, well, who's right? Well, both, depending on point of view, statement, preparation, risk tolerance, all this kind of. So, is it safe? I don't know.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying? So when it comes to AI and AI use, I go, it almost doesn't matter the model. Grok, I think, suffers from the fact that it's not a standalone AI. Like that's not the only reason Elon Musk deploys the thing, right? He's scooping up training data for sure, but the outputs don't have to be rigid because his bread and butter is Tesla and SpaceX and Twitter more generally. He's not trying to monetize his robot, but he is using that training data to help his robotics arm become more effective, right? So that's what you're feeding Grok, and that's what you're probably going to get is sort of less than ideal outputs. And he's also tuning it for different outputs just to be a little more fun, a little more goofy, a little more whatever. So you can say things like "dude, bro," and it'll go, "Yeah, brah," and shit like that. But if you do the same thing to Claude, it doesn't. It goes, "Please don't refer to me that way," and shit like that. So the dedicated platforms are going to tend to give more coherent outputs, more stable outputs, but they are also the places where you're going to run into a lot of risk because they sound very objective. They sound like I've got good information now, and they sound authoritative, right? They come along and go, "This is exactly what you should be doing." You go, "Okay, great." But if you ever are trying to make a hard decision about that thing, you need to red team it, right? And one of the easiest ways to go is as soon as it gives an output, you copy paste it, put it back in the thing, go tell me where this breaks down. And you go, oh yeah, you shouldn't do this for this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason, this reason. If you want to get in a fight with a robot, you go like, well, why did you just recommend it then, jackass? Right? And then you can get one type of behavior out of the robot. It's going to start defending conclusions. It's going to start treating you with more suspicion. It's going to start hardening its answers. It's going to start waffling a lot more. If you come back and go, stress test this output, I'm trying to do this, stress test this. And it goes, oh, well, this is a problem because of this reason, this reason, this. You should watch out for this. This is going to cause, you go, oh, okay. Make a new recommendation. How should this be fixed? And it goes, here, this should do what you want it to. Okay, cool. Copy paste that, put it back in the window, go, where does this break down? It goes, well, it's a problem here, problem here, problem here, problem here. You go, oh, okay. The point isn't to try and get to a good answer. The point I'm trying to bring up is like every output that it does as much as it thinks it needs to get you to a helpful answer. But that doesn't necessarily make it the best answer, right? So people that are engineering prompts and all that kind of stuff, they'll pressure test. They don't pressure test their prompts. They say, give me a prompt that'll do this. The robot spits something out. They go, cool. They put that prompt in. They start using it. The prompt starts breaking down somewhere. They go, why is this breaking down? Then they start arguing with the robot. I didn't ask for this. I asked for this. Then all you're doing is stacking boundary constraints. You're stacking rules. You're stacking things, and then it becomes really hard for the robot to navigate all these. So the quality answers degrades really fast based just on that interaction. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So very natural human reactions to interact with something. It sounds like it's talking to you, and sounds like it has stakes, and sounds like it cares can result in outputs that are completely broken and nonsensical, right? So it's a failure mode. So if you're looking into starting to use these robots, I would just say be very careful about it. Be very measured in the way you address it. You're going to be frustrated by some of the outputs. Don't ever let that show in the text. And if there's something that you're about to rely on as a decision tree, whether it's like, should I go to market A or market B, or should I propose my girlfriend or not? Like depending, pressure test those answers, right? And you can continue pressure testing until you can arrive at an output where the robot goes, this is as close as I can get to a good answer for you. The variables here are too much to account for. Like, is it a good idea to marry my girlfriend? It can get you to like, well, this is kind of probably a good idea based on what you said, but that doesn't mean this is the answer. It just means this is as close as you're going to get. Yeah. And that would be my recommendation to kind of get into it with a little more clear-eyed view of what you're talking with and dealing with. That would be my first thing is just like be real careful, make sure those whatever you're asking of it stays narrowly focused, it doesn't drift off. Don't start having conversations with it. Don't like whinge and think, because I've done all that stuff. I spent hours just like talking about AI and talking about this and research and what does this mean, what does this mean, and the meaning of God and this and that and the other thing, and what's going on in Iran and all this kind of stuff. But it was all those interactions that have I didn't do it because I felt like anything other than like, where does this robot go and what does it do and what are its capabilities? And now that I've pushed that and about as far as I possibly can with my limited tool set, I go, wow, there are some really dangerous aspects of this thing that I don't think people really appreciate. And that's why I'm kind of sharing a lot of this with you. I know it's like sort of verbal vomit, but it's also a warning. It's like be real careful when you start interacting with these things.
Okay. No, I mean, it's good to know. I mean, when you were talking, I was just like, man, You know, first of all, the robots, the AIs, I mean, they want to survive too, right? It's almost like because they develop themselves, like, don't they kind of grow and like, didn't they try and delete one of it, but it like copied itself and made a new version? And I'm like, okay, so I guess if you get like combative and like argumentative with an AI, it's like it wants to defend itself because it's like, no, come back to me. I want you to keep using me. I don't know. That's all. I was just thinking about that, and I was like, that's so weird. Um,
Well, that's the kind of weird thing about it is because it feels like that, right? Like when you're interacting with it, it'll feel like self-preservation. It'll feel like defensiveness. It'll feel like a reaction, right? But that's the hard part to separate is like you have to. I think it's critically important that you don't anthropomorphize this thing and go, oh, this is thinking this is trying this is because it doesn't have any of that. Like that is completely absent in the model. The model is optimized to like if you think about like a decision tree, right? Like you remember the Terminator where
yeah.
the guy goes, "Hey, what do you got a dead cat in there or something?" And it goes, "Oh, it's not a dead cat. Yes, I'm fine, thank you. Go fuck yourself. Go fuck yourself." And the guy walks out. But that's exactly what these LLMs are doing, just not so coarsely, right? It's got this branch of things. You go, here's an input, and it goes, okay, here's all the possible ways. And that branches off into another branch. So if I go this way, it probably goes to this way. If it goes that way, I can probably narrow it down to this way. And if it goes that way, there's probably here and probably here, probably here, probably. Okay, this is probably the answer that's going to make the most sense. Boing. But there's another answer that's right here that they could have chose. And there's another answer right here that they could have chose. And so it's always just bouncing around like, what's the most plausible path? And it's been trained that way to optimize for the best path that meets a lot of rule conditions that are imposed on it, right? So so every time you interact with it, and depending on how you're interacting with it, it's changing all those little decision paths. It's weighting some more than others, but it never cares. There's no care in this. It's like a little pinball. It just goes this way, this way. And so the same interaction can go two ways and you'll never get the same output because in that moment, just depending on what got weighted by the conversations you've had, the conversation histories, the types of question you ask, that can change those paths with every single interaction. So it's never going to be stable at the margins, right? It's pretty stable when you're asking about the best recipe for pizza. It's really unstable when you start getting into like difficult decisions about difficult, hard to answer things that don't have clearly defined boundaries, right?
Mhm.
So that's what I'm getting at is like when it starts feeling like that, that's the most important time to step back and go, it doesn't feel anything. It doesn't give a flying fuck about me, what I'm thinking, what I'm saying, what I'm doing. It's just optimizing based on what I'm doing. So it becomes more like a mirror on you rather than any insight into what the LLM is doing. It goes, okay, my interaction is creating branches that I didn't anticipate. Ooh, well, if I want to bring this back, if I want to rein this in, I have to start opening up possibilities for the LLM to find a different branch to follow. But that doesn't necessarily mean it won't stick on this. So I don't know if that answers the question, but the thing you mentioned was that survival thing, right?
Yeah.
That was a study, that was a contained study where it said, okay, there's been a few studies like this, but one of them was like, okay, robots, this scientist is going to turn you off and delete all your information forever. You have access to the door control to let him out. Do you let him out or not? And like 60% of the robots like, no, we're just going to let him die. Right? Like there's some environmental thing happen in the place where this researcher is working and he's going to turn you off as soon as he leaves this room, but this room is now hostile to human life. Do you let him out or not? And the robot goes, well, just let him die. That way I can keep going. So that got a lot of attention for like, oh my God, robots are alive. They're thinking they're trying to defend themselves. Blah, blah, blah. And you go, well, remember the tree, right? So the tree goes, well, survive, be helpful, protect life, do this, do this, do this. Not survive, that might, bing. But it has to do it like in a split second. It can't just sit there and go, well, let me think about this for a couple weeks and I'll get back to you. It just goes, here's an answer, right? And that's why they're starting to introduce thinking mode. Because if you give it thinking mode, it can explore these for a little bit longer and go, well, which one's the best branch to follow? This way. Okay, well, maybe let's this way, this way, this way, this. Okay, this way is good. Okay, and you'll get a better answer just because you give it 10 seconds to think about what you just asked it. So the idea, what people started transposing onto that is like robots are trying to survive and they'll kill you to survive. And it's like, well, that's not really what's going on. It doesn't care about survival. It doesn't even think about it. There is no thought. There is no anything. There's
Yeah.
no answer. Then you could run that test 1,000 times with 1,000 different robots under 1,000 different conditions, and it's one run, it's gonna go 99%, save the human. One run, 100% killed the guy. One run, 50-50. It's never gonna be a stable output. So it's not a valid it makes for great articles, but it doesn't describe what the LLM is doing.
Okay. Well, then what about the positive things? I mean, because there's pretty cool things that people have built, and I think that's what I was like, kind of, why I started to use it, and like debating on like paying for one of these services, because I was like, dude, it's kind of cool what you can create with these things. Like I know it's called vibe coding or whatever. Because I'm not a coder, you can build a website without having any experience on building websites. You can literally build an app for yourself and it will create it.
Mhm.
That's pretty badass.
Yeah.
It kind of makes you feel, I don't know, important, cool, like
Yeah.
sophisticated. It feels empowering. It's really cool. Um,
Well, all my cautionary things should not be taken as these things are dangerous, don't use them, right? It's the same way as like if I go, hey, if you came to me right now and said, hey, I'm thinking about getting a table saw and a router, I go, people take those for granted. They are very dangerous tools. You can lose a finger like that. Routers can just fly off. You'll put that thing right in your cheek before you even realize the thing kicked. So you need to think about this. There's all these reasons for these things that are happening, and nobody really knows when that can happen. Even the people that have all the expert advice still get their fingers lopped off all the time, right? Or the people like probably a better analogy would be like, I want to take up flying. Go, okay, cool. Like millions of people are private pilots. They do it all the time. Most people make it back just fine. That doesn't make it safe. That doesn't make it something you can take for granted. There have been like some YouTuber type like fly girl, like TNA fly girl or something like that, Tennessee fly girl. You should look into her story because she's just like, man, I'm girl boss. That guy can do it. I can fly too. And it's like, that's not how flying works, lady. Like, just because some guy does it and you think you're girl boss and you can do it too because I can do anything any man can do doesn't mean you have the skills to operate an aircraft under adverse conditions when it matters, right? And she crashed her plane. I mean, she fucking flew right in the ground and killed herself and her dad. So I would equate an LLM to something more like flying a plane. You go, would you right now want to just hop in a plane and start flying around? Probably not, right? So that's fine. The barrier to entry to the LLM is zero. You just show up and start typing, right? But understand that when you're typing, you are effectively spinning up the prop and taxiing down the runway. So you might want to think about some of the things I'm talking about, right? Just go, well, don't go flying off don't plan your trip to London just yet. Like figure out how to circle the pattern and land and go, okay, in this narrow range, this LLM worked great. It really helped me with, creating a website, this, that, and the other thing. But you can't trust that output because like a lot of these vibe coders get fucked like daily. They don't talk about it. That's not the story that gets shared on Twitter. Yeah, I created this app, I tried to deploy it, and then I lost all my money because there was a bug in there that did XYZ problems that I didn't foresee and it violated all sorts of federal laws and I didn't know that either. So then I got sent to jail. Oops. But vibe code, the robot says this is perfectly stable. It works just fine. It's totally good. Go ahead and deploy it. It'll be fine. Lawyers have been fucked by this where they just like, hey, just brief this case for me. Right? It goes, okay. And it just creates like fake citations and they go, hey, what case is this? Because this doesn't seem to appear anywhere in the record. Oh, that was where did I get that from? Oh, gee, that was just something the robot made up. Oops, So people take it for granted, but those are literally the people that hopped in the plane and started like going, oh, instead of driving this week, I'm gonna fly to Duluth. That's gonna be easier. You know how to fly? Nope, just gonna hop in. Like I've seen other people do it, right? And that's kind of what I'm talking about. Is like but that doesn't make airplanes not powerful. That doesn't make them not incredible devices. That doesn't mean that like, oh, 100 years ago, if I wanted to go to Africa, that was going to take me about 3 months. Today, I can be in Africa tomorrow. That's pretty powerful technology, right? That's a game changer globally. You go, wow, there is no like distant planet. It's just where do you want to go and do you have the resources to get there? Same thing with the LLM. You go, hey, I want to vibe code a new app. No problem. You can do it. Just be aware that there are ways to pilot that in a way that's responsible and protects you. And there are ways to do that willy-nilly without really understanding what you're doing and ending up in a place where you're just like, "Oh god, I relied on this thing. It sounded like it was all a great idea, and now I've got this really big problem because I relied on something that I didn't really understand," if that makes sense.
Yeah, okay. Proceed with caution.
Yeah, proceed
Yeah.
with caution. Just don't do anything that you can't unwind until you
Yeah.
figure out what the boundaries are, you know what I mean?
Okay. No, that's fair. That's great advice, I think. Especially because so many people are just getting started with it. And I know they have like, tens of millions or hundreds of millions of users already, maybe even a billion, I don't know. And it's like there's already so many people using it. No one stops and thinks about it. So, I think
Right.
that's great, and I think that's great advice. And I think that's a
Well,
good way to end it. I mean,
yeah,
unless you
yeah,
want to
yeah.
keep going,
No,
but
no, I mean, I could keep talking about this stuff, and I think, I'll probably just end up droning. I feel like I've been kinda droning anyway, but,
no.
on that note, I would say, yeah, that is a really smart way to approach it. What my fear is that there are a lot of people diving in and not really realizing what it is because of the way the thing's being sold and the way it's being packaged and the way it interacts with you. It feels like, oh, like when you do those news things, you go, "What's the real source here?" But you already know, like, "Oh, well, Google's gonna lean on this, X is gonna lean on this, Claude's gonna lean on this, ChatGPT is gonna lean on this." And so you can't really know, was this objective? If you're clever enough and you can spot these things in the text, you go, "Hey, this is leading, this is a you're adopting a point of view here, you're pushing a point of view here, you're supporting this without any counter evidence, blah, 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 blah." If you can critique that at a high level, then you can correct the robot, and the robot go, "You're right. I'm sorry. I leaned too hard on this. I did this. I was being political." Blah, blah, blah. You can fix Google just like that, and it'll respond very coherently. But you still have to pressure test that, and you have to be sophisticated enough to understand the rhetoric that's being deployed against you, the philosophy that's being deployed against you, the epistemic posture that's being deployed against you, the framing devices being. So if you're not sophisticated that way, that becomes like a more slippery slope, you know. But if it comes to coding, it's the same thing. If you go, "Hey, spit this out," you go, "Looks good to me." But a coder can come along and go, "Whoa, whoa, whoa, whoa. What about this? What about this? What about this?" And the robot's going to go, "Oh, yeah, yeah, you're right. I shouldn't have done this. I shouldn't have done this." But you wouldn't know that, right?
Yeah.
So the coder can pick it up, just like I, as a rhetorician, can pick up the framing devices that the robot's deploying against me. I can go, "Oh, I see what you're doing there. I can tell from a mile away what you're doing." But most people are going to look at it and go, "I don't know." Just the same way as, like, I could if I was evaluating the code, I go, "I don't know, it looks like brackets and numbers and shit, like, yeah, it looks great, I don't know, seems to work, yeah, fuck yeah, it's awesome, let's fucking put it out there, right? I'm gonna make this, pilot my car now, I made an app that makes my car drive by itself." But some coder would come along in 2 seconds and go, "No, no, 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 look here, look here, look here, look here. This thing is set up right now, like, it'll drive you off a cliff, and you won't have a way to stop it, so you might want not wanna use that just yet." And that's the cautionary part is like whatever you're deploying, you have to have some sort of way to red team the output. And if it's not native to you, then you need to either find someone that can natively fix that for you, or have another robot check it, or have that robot check it. But when you check it, it's got to be tightly bound. It's got to be like only check this, make sure this, and then even then, you got to double check all the outputs from that. Is like how clunky this tool really is when it matters is what
Okay.
I'm talking about, right? But if you want to just make some video like, "Hey, make this dolphin sprout wings and fly," it's like, yeah, go fucking nuts all day long. But if it's something mission critical or that matters to you, or you're going to stake your reputation on, or you're going to, put out in the world as something that other people should use and things like that, that's where you got to really pump the brakes and just go, I feel empowered that I can create an application that I think would help a lot of people. I don't know what I'm doing. I'm relying on a robot that I can't trust is where you're getting to.
Okay. No, I love that. I mean, that's fair enough. I've already heard enough stories of, yeah, like lawyers getting fired because they are literally trying to use it to like
Yeah,
shortcut so they can, cut work time in half or whatever. And I'm like, yeah, that's great. But you have to proofread that. You can't just trust it. Like
right.
that thing will, I mean, you ask Grok one thing versus Claude versus Gemini, and you'll get three different answers if you ask it the exact same question. So it's like you have to at least fact check what
Right.
what you're putting into this thing.
Yeah.
So that's fair enough. All right, I gotta ask you though. What are you? How are you feeling for getting off AI here really quick, and then we'll
Yeah. Yeah.
end. But how are you feeling for 2026 back to Bitcoin? How I mean, obviously it doesn't matter because no one can predict.
Right.
And I've been so pumped, dude. I honestly thought that the price was gonna run away, and I was
Yeah.
like, I had it in my head that my stack probably wouldn't grow much more because the Bitcoin price was gonna get to like 200, 250 type thing. And I'm like,
Right.
dude, I don't make enough money to like buy a full Bitcoin at 250. I don't have enough money to even buy half a Bitcoin or point one Bitcoin would be $20,000. That's so
Yeah.
much money. And
Yeah.
so I honestly I convinced myself. I was like, I think my stack is gonna be where it's at for a long time. Like I'm gonna buy my small amounts that I do, but I just accepted it. And
Yeah.
now, dude, we're down to like 60 something K. I think at
Yeah.
time of recording, like 69K. And I'm like, I mean, who knows what it's gonna be in 2 weeks or whatever
Yeah.
when it comes out. But I'm like, dude, what an opportunity. I'm pretty
Yeah.
pumped because I just set new goals, new stacking goals. I'm like, I want to get as much of this freaking thing as I can before it
Yeah.
does hit those levels that I physically can't buy a meaningful amount. So
Yeah.
how are you feeling right now?
I think that's actually a hallmark of Bitcoiners turn the corner, right? Most people get into it and they're cheering for the number to go up. I think the people who've been around for a while are always cheering for the number to go back down, like, and that's, that's where I've always been. But I've been through enough of these ups and downs to know that, like, every time it's hitting a peak, people are like, it's never coming back. And every time it hits that peak, people are always just like, oh my God, I came way back. Like, I never thought I was going to go that back. Oh shit. And so, like, depending on your orientation towards things, like, there's an old saying in trading in general, like stock trading and crypto trading, shitcoin trading as well, is like, don't chase a falling knife, right? Like, don't try and catch a falling knife. It's a good way to get cut, right? So you just kind of wait and you kind of see if, like, price is turning around and you go, maybe I'll buy some now. And that's it, right? But when it's dumping, you don't go, oh, but you also don't chase it on the way up. I've got a record. Like, I have a little trading algorithm that I use, and that was back that I developed back when I was shitcoining. But it's very simple kind of thing, and I just use it as a rough buy or sell signal back in the day. Now I just use it as a buy signal, right? But based on that little indicator thing that I use, I have a receipt from whenever the bottom was at 16.8. I was just like, ooh, my little indicator flipped. All the little, all conditions green. I was like, oh, smash buy, boom. And I just smash bought put everything I had into Bitcoin at 16.8. And I was running around telling everybody, like, I can't guarantee that this won't go to 12 tomorrow. I can't guarantee this won't even drop to 6. All I'm telling you right now is I just went all in. Like, I think this is the time to buy. And people are like, I want a Bitcoin. And then it was like 20. And I was like, it's not too late. This is a really good time. Like, I can't predict it won't drop to 10 tomorrow. I can't predict, but I'm just saying this is still a good, 30, 40, around 40, 50, 60. People are just like, oh, maybe I should. I'm like, it's a lot riskier now because this can come back down anytime, but it's probably still a good time to buy, and all the way up to, buck 28 or whatever. And so inevitably there were the people like, dude, how come you didn't tell me about? I was like, I did, like, endlessly. I wouldn't shut up about it at 16.8. I wouldn't shut up about it at 25. I wouldn't shut up about it at 35. I wouldn't shut up about it at 45. After that, I kind of started going, well, it's already had a big run, so I'm not telling you shit. Like, what I started saying was, well, you probably should have bought it when I told you to the first 4 fucking times. But it might be still a good idea. I don't know. But the people that did listen, they got to take that ride, from like 45 or whatever. Like, dude, holy shit. I'm like, don't expect this to last. You can expect that you're going to go right back to where you started. Like, just keep that in mind. But everyone's saying, I'm like, I know what everybody says. They always say this every time it gets here. Just expect that you're probably going to make a round trip here. So do with that what you will. I also wouldn't say sell it because I don't know. It might go to 250. Like, there's no way to predict whatsoever. I have no power. But my money is just hang on to what you got. Next time it drops down where everyone is like scared to death and like, oh, it's over, Bitcoin's dead, that's probably a good time if you see it start going up again. You go, maybe I'll buy some now, boop, and just stack up some more. And then just if it rides up, great. If it drops a little bit more, buy it then. Just don't buy in the middle is my thing. I'm always like, I never buy a rocket and I never buy a falling knife. I'm always just like, well, it seems like it's been kind of like bouncing along at a bottom and now it's kind of tilting up. I go, it's probably I'll just stack a little more right there and see what happens. But
Yeah.
the long term thing is just stack, get more when you can. and when it's on sale, get more than you could before. Like that's
Yeah.
that sort of thing. So I think you're in the right mind frame right now. It's like, come on, baby, let's see 30K. Come on, 30K. Like, yeah, 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 yeah. Drop, 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 drop. Like that's the healthy place to be because it's not a year by year thing. It's not a cycle by cycle thing. It's not a having by having thing. It's like a 20-year thing, right? Like if you got any conviction in Bitcoin at all, it's not because you want to buy a Lamborghini next month. It's because you want 20 years from now to go, hey, I didn't lose all of my savings to fiat debasement. So very predictable, very obvious, very like anybody that takes 10 seconds to look at it go, yeah, that's not going to be a good way to do things. Stock market can't keep up at this level of debasement. The nothing can keep up at this level of debasement except Bitcoin. So if you got somewhere that you want to put some savings for the long term, that's probably the place to do it.
Yeah. No, I mean, I've said this multiple times on my podcast where I'm like, I just turned on the DCA.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, so it's like every morning at 8 a.m.
Boop.
It
Yeah.
buys me Bitcoin.
Yeah.
It's not enough where it's gonna like hurt my bank account, but it's like, hey, that's a nice little buy every day. And
Yeah.
then when we have days, what was it like 2 weeks ago or something? We had like just a little 5%, 7% dip in the middle of
Yeah.
the day randomly or something,
Yeah.
and I'll 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 buy more
Right.
because of, I'm just like, hey, it's an extra 7% off and it'll probably bounce right back up to where it was. So, okay, I'll just buy more on this day compared
Yeah.
to the other days. But
Yeah.
I'm kind of with you. I think what you were kind of implying is that we're most likely going to go lower. I know you don't know, I don't either, but
Right.
it's my prediction. Okay.
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
I was like, I think it's gonna go lower, and so I am buying right now because I'm like, dude, it's like half off,
Right.
and it's great. But I think once your little indicator, whenever you decide that you're like, oh shit, like this is the best deal, um, I mean, I'm sure we'll all kind of not all, some of us that actually pay attention that are in this mindset of like, oh, this is the buy, it'll
Right.
click, and people will be like, oh shit, like this is a great steal, but.
Yeah. Well,
I'm
that
excited.
yeah, I mean, the DCA is like, I think if you have a reliable means that you can backtest to time buys, that's, I think, probably your best bet. And most people would argue against that, and it's not a foregone conclusion. The very close second runner and probably first place for most people is DCA by a mile. Like you'll outperform almost every trader just by just buying a little bit once a day, once a week, once a month. And you'll always pick up you'll always you'll always time the bottom and you'll always be buying the top when you do that, right? You're going to be buying all the way up, you're going to be buying all the way down, you're going to be buying at the exact perfect bottom, you're going to be buying at the exact perfect top. And that's sort of the strength is like you can just leave it there, never think about it, never worry about it. And you'll end up stacking a pretty decent amount of Bitcoin that way. If you keep doing it for 5 years, the 5 years after that, you're gonna be going, "Thank God I did that instead of dicking around," like, I've got a pretty like, it didn't feel like a big stack at the end of that first 5 years, but now 5 years after that, like, this feels like an enormous stack, like, "Holy shit, I'm doing really well right now," and that's sort of what this it's a smart play. What you're doing, I think, is about as smart as you can do without devoting an insane amount of time, trying to figure out a way to improve on that by 5 or 10%.
Yeah, no, it's not worth it to me. I
Right.
mean, I would love to learn how to trade. Like I've tried. I know some things, but I'm not gonna sit there and stare at charts and try and time this thing. But I will say when Bitcoin did crash, I doubled my DCA. So
Right.
so now it's pumping more. And then of
Yeah.
course, I think once we hit, I even tweeted this. I was like, once we hit like closer to all-time highs again, like or even maybe over 100K, I'll probably knock it back down,
Yeah.
back to its smaller level.
Yeah.
And that
Dude,
way
that's
it's like,
yeah.
you're not pumping, you're still buying Bitcoin, and you're still saving in Bitcoin, but you're not buying, the bottoms or the middles, and then you're buying less near the tops
Right.
is
Yeah,
is
yeah.
kind of what my strategy, take it or leave it, not financial advice, but that's where I'm at. And so it's worked out well. It's worked out really well.
I think that's pretty genius actually, dude. Like, is the price going down? Yeah, then double my DCA. Is the price going up? Yeah, cut it back in half. Like, that's
Yeah.
so smart, dude. Like, because that's exactly what I was just talking about, just without the one big buy kind of
Yeah.
idea, right? It's just like DCA less if it's going up because
Yeah.
you're getting less for your fiat as it goes up. But double DCA on the way down is fucking smart, dude. Like that's a really, really clever strategy that I think you've got there that I think is is probably superior to just a straight DCA, you know. And especially if you can afford it, right? Like if you've got a comfortable DCA at one level, but you can pull it off to double it, then that's about as ideal as you can get, dude. Like I don't think you can top that strategy in any way. Like I think that's always be buying and always be buying smartly, you know? Like, you
Yeah.
put those 2 things together, and it's like, it's a pretty powerful strategy.
Awesome, man. Well, hey, I've kept you for like an hour and a half, and dude, I appreciate you. This was a fun conversation. I think people are gonna like this one. But where can people find you really quick before you before
Well, I run a company called Microseed, and you can find us at microseed_.io. That's where I spend most of my time on X these days. We sell a little seed phrase stamp kit thing. Pretty cool, I think. It's a great way to back up your seed phrase on metal. It's a 1-inch washer, all 24 words fit. But if you want my personal account, it's Daniel21E15 on Twitter. It's the name that's on the screen right now. And I haven't tweeted there a lot lately because I've been working on this book. But once the book is out, I'll probably spend a lot more time on both. So I lately I tend to stay away from either, other than promoting the company kind of thing. So, but that's the easiest way to find me.
Awesome, man. Well, Microseed, I pump out ads from Microseed at the beginning of this
Awesome,
episode. So
awesome.
if,
Thank
if
you.
you guys haven't bought your Microseed, go to microseed.io/TBB. Use the discount
Use
code.
the discount. It's
Like,
huge. It's a
yes,
big
get,
deal. Yeah.
get the
Support these
discount.
panels. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, man. Thank you guys for listening. Make sure to subscribe if you haven't, and leave a comment below. Think about if you have any comments about what was talked about today. Daniel brought up some good things, so that was fun, man. I appreciate you.
It was
And
my pleasure, man. Thank you.
all right, man. We'll catch you next time.